Have you ever been judged unfairly, not for what you've done, but for what you look like? Some people walk away. Mariah Thompson? She made sure they'd never forget her. What do you think happened when the hotel finally learned she was a billionaire and their new boss? She walked into the lobby expecting a warm welcome, but instead they looked her up and down and told her there were no rooms available. They didn't know she was one of the richest women in the country, or that she owned more real estate than their entire hotel chain. But she wasn't about to walk away quietly. What happened next would turn the entire hotel upside down and make the staff regret the moment they ever judged her. It was late evening when Mariah Thompson, a self-made billionaire, stepped out of her chauffeur-driven Bentley and approached the grand entrance of the prestigious Sterling Grand Hotel. She'd stayed in luxury hotels around the world, but this trip was different. It was for a quiet, personal weekend. Wearing a simple designer blazer and jeans, she didn't look like the high-profile mogul splashed across magazine covers. And that was exactly how she liked it. Inside the lobby, the marble floor gleamed and the chandeliers sparkled, but the warmth stopped at the reception desk. The moment she walked up, the front desk manager, a tall man named Greg, glanced at her, then immediately shifted his attention to the couple behind her in line. "Excuse me, I believe I was next," Mariah said politely. Greg gave her a quick, dismissive look. "We're currently fully booked. Unless you're a guest with a reservation already, there's nothing I can do for you." Mariah tilted her head slightly. "I do have a reservation. Under Thompson." Greg barely checked the computer before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, but there must be some mistake. We don't have anything under that name." Before she could respond, he added in a lower tone, "Look, this is an exclusive property. Our clientele expect a certain standard. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." The words stung, but Mariah's face remained calm. She had faced worse in boardrooms and negotiations, but the blatant prejudice was always a bitter pill to swallow. "Interesting," she said softly. "Perhaps I will find somewhere else. But don't worry, I'll be back." As she turned to leave, she caught the smirk Greg exchanged with another staff member. He clearly thought he'd gotten rid of her for good. What he didn't know was that Mariah owned more than just tech companies and real estate portfolios. She also happened to hold a controlling interest in a global luxury hospitality group. And Sterling Grand was on that list. By the time she stepped back into her Bentley, her assistant had already pulled out a tablet. "Shall I?" the assistant asked with a knowing smile. "Oh, definitely," Mariah replied. "Let's give them a check-in experience they'll never forget." This wasn't just about a room anymore. This was about respect. And Greg was about to learn that he had just turned away the most powerful guest he'd ever meet. The next afternoon, the Sterling Grand's valet area buzzed with activity. Guests arrived in sleek sports cars and high-end SUVs, but nothing turned heads quite like the convoy that now rolled up to the entrance. First came two black SUVs, their tinted windows hiding the passengers inside. Behind them, a gleaming white Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a stop, its custom silver trim catching the sunlight. The valet rushed forward, expecting some celebrity or foreign dignitary. When the door opened, Mariah stepped out. No jeans this time. She wore a tailored emerald green pantsuit, her diamond earrings catching the light, and a quiet confidence in every step. Greg, the front desk manager, was mid-conversation with a wealthy-looking couple when his eyes flicked to the entrance. His jaw tightened. He clearly recognized her, but his expression shifted into something between confusion and irritation. Mariah didn't acknowledge him yet. Instead, she was greeted by a sharply dressed woman who emerged from one of the SUVs, the Sterling Grand's regional director, Claudia Reynolds. "Miss Thompson, welcome back," Claudia said warmly, her voice carrying just enough volume to draw curious stares from nearby guests. "Your penthouse suite has been fully prepared, and I personally ensured every detail meets your standards. Greg blinked. Penthouse suite. His mind scrambled for answers. Claudia turned to the stunned staff behind the desk. This is Mariah Thompson, majority shareholder of the Sterling Hospitality Group, which owns this property. She'll be staying with us indefinitely. Please ensure she is afforded the highest level of service. A hush fell over the lobby. The same employees who had watched Greg dismiss Mariah the night before now stood frozen, realizing the magnitude of his mistake. Mariah finally looked at Greg, her tone polite but pointed. I understand you were fully booked yesterday. Yet, somehow, the penthouse was available today. Interesting, isn't it? Greg's face flushed. Miss Thompson, I wasn't aware. That's the thing about respect, Mariah interrupted gently. You shouldn't need to be aware of someone's wealth or status to offer it. The words landed heavier than any reprimand. Guests nearby exchanged glances, some nodding in quiet agreement. Claudia gestured toward the elevator. Shall we? Mariah smiled faintly. Yes, let's see my suite. As they walked away, Greg stood motionless, the weight of his actions settling in. Around him, staff whispered, knowing this incident would become legend in the Sterling Grand's history, a reminder that you never know who you're speaking to and what doors your prejudice might close forever. Later that week, the Sterling Grand's top executives gathered in the 15th floor boardroom. It was an emergency meeting called by none other than the regional director herself. The atmosphere was tense. Whispers rippled around the long mahogany table as the department heads tried to guess the reason. Greg sat at the far end, his palms sweating. He'd been told his presence was mandatory, which only deepened his unease. The events of Mariah's arrival had been playing on repeat in his mind, and he feared the fallout wasn't over. The door opened, and in walked Claudia Reynolds, followed closely by Mariah Thompson. Heads turned instantly. A few of the executives recognized her from the company's internal newsletters. Others only knew her by reputation. The enigmatic investor, whose sharp business instincts had grown the Sterling Hospitality Group into a billion-dollar empire. Claudia's voice was calm, but commanding. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the woman who has been the backbone of our company's success for the last decade. This is Ms. Mariah Thompson, our majority shareholder. Greg's jaw tightened as a low murmur spread across the room. Mariah took her place at the head of the table, looking every bit in control. I called this meeting, Mariah began, because the events at this property last week revealed a problem far bigger than one manager's poor decision-making. They exposed a culture issue, one that could cost us not just revenue, but our reputation. Her gaze swept the room. Hospitality is about making every guest feel welcome, not just the ones who look like they belong. If someone is denied service because of bias, that's not just a moral failing. It's a business disaster. Greg shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mariah continued, I could have ignored what happened, but ignoring problems doesn't fix them. So here's what we're going to do. Mandatory inclusivity and anti-discrimination training for all staff, from valets to senior management. Anonymous guest feedback channels. And, most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for prejudice, with real consequences. She let the silence sit for a moment, then added, Greg, you'll be assisting in leading these initiatives under direct oversight. Consider it an opportunity to rebuild trust. Greg swallowed hard, managing only a quiet, yes, Miss Thompson. Mariah gave a small, firm nod. Good, because at the Sterling Grand, every guest matters, and I expect all of us to prove it every single day. Around the table, heads nodded. The message was clear. Change wasn't just coming, it had already arrived. A week later, the Sterling Grand was buzzing with an unusual energy. Staff polished every surface until it gleamed, floral arrangements filled the lobby, and a small stage had been set up near the grand staircase. Word had spread. Mariah Thompson was hosting an event, and no one knew quite what to expect. Greg stood near the reception desk, checking the guest list for the third time. He was nervous, but not just for himself. The past week had been a blur of meetings, training sessions, and uncomfortable self-reflection. He wasn't sure if one event could change perceptions, but Mariah seemed confident it could. At precisely 6 p.m., Mariah stepped onto the stage. The crowd, a mix of hotel guests, local business leaders, and reporters, fell silent. She wore a tailored navy suit, her posture radiating authority. "Good evening," she began. "When I invested in the Sterling Grand, I wanted it to be a symbol of excellence. But excellence isn't just about fine linens or award-winning cuisine. It's about how we treat people, every person, from the moment they walk through those doors." There was a murmur of agreement from the audience. "Last week," Mariah continued, "I experienced firsthand what happens when assumptions take the place of service. And while it would be easy to single out one person for blame, the truth is this is a bigger conversation, one that needs to happen not just here, but everywhere." She paused, then smiled. "That's why tonight I'm launching the Welcome First initiative, a program to ensure that every guest, regardless of race, background, or appearance, is treated with dignity and respect." Applause broke out. Mariah held up a hand. "And to show this is more than just words, I've made a personal donation to fund scholarships for hospitality students from underrepresented communities. Because real change starts with opportunity." Reporters scribbled furiously as cameras flashed. From the side of the stage, Greg watched, feeling a complex mix of admiration and humility. Mariah hadn't humiliated him publicly, nor had she erased his mistake. Instead, she had turned it into a moment for growth, for everyone. When the applause died down, Mariah stepped off the stage and made her way to the reception desk. She extended her hand to Greg. "Ready to make this place a benchmark for the industry?" she asked. Greg shook her hand firmly. "Yes, Miss Thompson." "More than ready." Mariah's smile widened. "Good, because we're just getting started." The Sterling Grand had a new standard, and this time it was built to last. In the months following the Welcome First launch, the Sterling Grand experienced a transformation unlike anything the hotel had seen before. Guests noticed the difference immediately, not just in the improved service, but in the genuine warmth radiating from every employee. The lobby became a place of smiles and open greetings, no matter who walked through the door. Business travelers, tourists, celebrities, and even locals began sharing glowing reviews online. Phrases like "treated like royalty," and finally, "a hotel that sees you" appeared over and over. Greg, once haunted by his mistake, became one of the most vocal advocates for the program. He led morning briefings with passion, reminding staff of the importance of first impressions. "We're not just checking in guests," he'd say. "We're setting the tone for their entire stay." Mariah, true to her word, stayed involved. She visited weekly, not as a distant investor, but as a hands-on leader. Sometimes she'd sit quietly in the lobby, watching how her staff interacted with guests. Other times, she'd roll up her sleeves and personally welcome people as they arrived. Her presence kept everyone sharp, but also inspired. One evening, while Mariah was reviewing monthly performance reports, Greg approached her. "Miss Thompson," he said, holding out a tablet, "you should see this." It was a travel blog's annual hospitality ranking. The Sterling Grand had not only climbed the list, it had landed in the top 5 luxury hotels in the country. Mariah's lips curved into a proud smile. "That's a start," she said. "Now we aim for number 1. Greg hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you just walked out that day?" Mariah's expression softened. Every day, she admitted. And that's why I stayed. Because walking out wouldn't have changed anything. Staying meant we could rewrite the ending. They stood in silence for a moment, watching a young family being warmly greeted at the front desk. The father looked tired from travel, but when the receptionist bent down to offer the little girl a chocolate, the man's entire demeanor shifted. He smiled. The tension melted away. That, Mariah said quietly, is why we do this. From then on, the Sterling Grand was more than just a hotel. It was a story people wanted to be part of. And for Mariah Thompson, it wasn't just about proving a point. It was about proving that change was possible and worth fighting for. The once denied guest had become the architect of a legacy